He sold his company for $40 million, and the first thing he bought was a yacht. 12 months later, he was begging his bank for a loan. Not because the market crashed, not because he made bad investments, but because of this: a floating machine that consumed his fortune silently, systematically, and completely legally. And here's the part nobody talks about. He never even saw it coming. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how one of the most seductive purchases a wealthy person can make quietly becomes the most catastrophic financial decision of their life. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why some of the world's richest people describe buying a super yacht as the single worst mistake they ever made. You're standing on the upper deck of your brand new 40-meter super yacht. The sun is setting over the harbor. Dozens of other massive vessels surround you, each one worth hundreds of millions. Your crew is below preparing dinner for your guests. The champagne is cold. The sea air is perfect. For exactly one evening, everything feels like it was worth it. Then your captain walks up quietly and hands you a folder. Inside is a breakdown of expenses from the first month alone: fuel, port fees, crew salaries, insurance, a mechanical inspection that flagged 3 systems needing immediate attention, an engine component that must be replaced before the next voyage, and the part, because it carries a mandatory maritime safety certificate, costs 11 times more than its land equivalent. You close the folder. You tell yourself it's fine. This is what owning a yacht costs. You knew this going in. Except you didn't. Not really. Because what the brokers never tell you clearly when they're closing the deal is this: the price you paid for the yacht was just the cover charge. The real bill starts now. There's an iron rule in the maritime industry that brokers conveniently gloss over during negotiations. Annual maintenance on a private super yacht costs a minimum of 10% of its purchase price every single year, whether the boat moves or not. Let that sink in for a moment. If your yacht costs $20 million, you are committing to spending $2 million annually just to keep it floating, certified, and legally operational. That's not an estimate, that's the floor, the absolute minimum under ideal conditions. And conditions are rarely ideal. Most new yacht owners assume their biggest costs will come from actually using the vessel: fuel, voyages, entertainment. They imagine the yacht sitting peacefully in a beautiful marina, costing them almost nothing while it waits. This assumption is one of the most expensive misconceptions in the world of private wealth. Marinas in the French Riviera, Monaco, Miami, and the Balearic Islands operate on a different economic reality than anything you've experienced before. During major international events, film festivals, sailing regattas, Grand Prix weekends, the daily mooring fee for a large vessel can spike to 3,000 euros or more per day for a single berth. And that's just for the right to be tied to a dock. Separate invoices arrive for shore power connection, because a yacht of this size needs an industrial-grade electricity supply running constantly to maintain its systems. Then there's fresh water delivery, waste management, and security. But the fee structure is only part of the problem. The other part is access. Premium marina berths in the world's most desirable locations are extraordinarily scarce. There are yacht owners who pay unofficial commissions of tens of thousands of dollars to agents simply to secure a spot at a preferred dock. This is an open secret in the industry. Everyone knows it happens. Nobody talks about it officially. And here's where the trap becomes truly dangerous. International maritime law protects port authorities with remarkable force. If a yacht owner faces a temporary cash flow problem on shore, a delayed transaction, a frozen account, a business dispute, and misses a port payment by as little as 30 days, marina administrators are legally entitled to seize assets and block all exits to open water. This isn't theoretical. In one Mediterranean port, a yacht owner whose accounts were temporarily frozen was denied access to shore power. Without air conditioning running continuously, the vessel's rare hardwood interior deteriorated beyond repair within 2 months. The hull, sitting in warm water without proper maintenance, lost structural integrity, and its expensive anti-fouling coating failed. When the yacht was eventually auctioned under legal compulsion, it sold for $3 million. It had been purchased for $10 million less than 2 years earlier. Everything we've discussed so far, the port fees, the maintenance floor costs, the legal exposure, all of that happens while the yacht is sitting completely still. Now imagine what happens when you actually want to use it. The moment those engines fire up, you're burning through money at a rate that genuinely shocks first-time owners, regardless of how wealthy they are. At a standard cruising speed, twin marine engines on a 40-meter vessel consume over 500 liters of fuel per hour. Push the throttle toward maximum, and that figure doubles instantly. Larger super yachts, the 60 to 80 meter category, can consume up to 2,000 liters per hour at speed. Now calculate a 3-day weekend trip. Departure Friday evening, return Sunday night. Moderate speed, reasonable routing. The fuel cost alone for that single weekend will exceed what most people spend maintaining a car for an entire year. Between 2021 and 2024, global marine diesel prices increased by nearly 50%. A single active summer season, moving the yacht regularly between ports, hosting guests, making the kind of voyages that justify owning the vessel in the first place, can easily generate $300,000 in fuel costs alone. That's before you've repaired anything, before you've paid the crew, before you've touched a single maintenance invoice. And the maintenance invoices are coming whether you invite them or not. Seawater is one of the most corrosive environments on Earth for metal, electronics, and synthetic materials. Salt air combined with constant UV exposure and continuous vibration degrades components 3 times faster than any equivalent land-based system. Engineers who work on these vessels describe a phenomenon that becomes grimly familiar to long-term owners. You finish repairing one system, and while you were focused on it, the adjacent system failed. A routine hull repainting at a licensed shipyard, mandatory for compliance and insurance, costs a minimum of $250,000. Rebuilding a propulsion gearbox runs over $150,000. These aren't emergency repairs. These are standard, expected, scheduled costs that every yacht owner faces on a rotating basis. Attempting to use unlicensed service providers to cut costs automatically voids the vessel's insurance and revokes its right to dock at international ports. There is no legal shortcut. Here is something that surprises almost every new superyacht owner, and it surprises them at the worst possible moment. You do not have the legal right to operate your own vessel. International Maritime Convention requires that any vessel exceeding 24 meters in length must be operated by a licensed professional crew at all times. This isn't a recommendation. This isn't a formality. It is a binding legal obligation that applies to every private superyacht owner on Earth, regardless of their personal wealth, experience, or preference. The moment you sign the purchase documents, you are also committing to employing a team of certified specialists indefinitely. A minimum crew for a yacht in the 35 to 45 meter range includes a licensed captain, a first officer, a qualified marine engineer, a chef, and cabin stewards. For larger vessels, the required crew size increases substantially. These individuals receive their full salaries 12 months a year, not just during the months you plan to use the yacht. When the vessel is docked over winter, when you're traveling on business, when you haven't been near the water in 4 months, the payroll continues without interruption. Crew costs routinely consume 40% of a superyacht's total annual operating budget. In addition to salaries, owners are legally obligated to provide comprehensive international health insurance for every crew member, full meals and provisions aboard, and round-trip flights between the yacht's location and each crew member's home country during their legally mandated vacation periods. But the salary obligation, as significant as it is, isn't the most dangerous element of the crew situation. That distinction belongs to maritime liens. Maritime law in virtually every jurisdiction on Earth gives contracted crew members an extraordinary form of legal protection that most wealthy individuals have never encountered before. If a yacht owner falls behind on crew salaries, even briefly, even due to circumstances entirely outside their control, the crew has the legal right to physically block the vessel from leaving port and pursue seizure through a maritime court. This isn't just a theoretical risk. In 2018, in the harbor of Malta, the 95-meter superyacht Indian Empress was judicially arrested after its owner's financial difficulties left 40 crew members unpaid. The accumulated salary debt exceeded $1 million. The crew filed with the local admiralty court. The vessel was immediately frozen. The owner could not move it, sell it privately, or remove the crew from their cabins, since abandoning the vessel without supervision violates safety regulations. The case concluded with a compulsory auction. The yacht sold for $35 million to satisfy crew claims and legal costs. The owner received nothing. Every serious financial advisor understands the concept of a depreciating asset, something that loses value over time. Cars depreciate, electronics depreciate, most luxury goods depreciate, but super yachts depreciate with a ferocity that places them in a category almost entirely their own. The instant a new yacht is delivered and its flag is raised for the first time, it loses between 10 and 15% of its retail purchase price, not over a year, immediately. The moment the transaction completes and the vessel enters personal use, a significant portion of the investment evaporates. In subsequent years, the depreciation continues at a rate of 5 to 8% annually under normal conditions, assuming the market remains stable and the yacht is maintained to the highest standards. For vessels in the 30 to 45 meter range, the secondary market situation is particularly unforgiving. Supply dramatically exceeds demand. Potential buyers have significant negotiating power because there are almost always more yachts available than serious purchasers. If the vessel wasn't constructed at one of the 5 globally recognized elite shipyards, its resale value collapses even further. Buyers fear hidden structural issues, system degradation, and the absence of manufacturer support. The personal customization problem makes this worse in ways that owners rarely anticipate. Wealthy individuals who purchase super yachts almost always invest heavily in personalizing the interior. Rare hardwoods imported from protected forests, gold-plated bathroom fixtures, hand-stitched exotic leather throughout the cabins, commissioned artwork, custom lighting systems. These modifications can add millions to the cost of ownership. On the secondary market, they add nothing to the sale price. Often they reduce it. A potential buyer has no interest in paying a premium for another person's taste. Worse, they understand that removing the customization and redesigning the interior to their preference will cost millions in additional work. The yacht with the most elaborate personalization is frequently the hardest to sell and commands the lowest offers. And all the while the vessel sits unsold, the monthly operating costs continue accumulating. A real case illustrates the arithmetic clearly. A buyer purchased a 38-meter yacht for $22 million, acting on immediate enthusiasm. Within 8 months, the true operational costs had become untenable. The yacht was listed for sale. It sat on the market for an extended period while costs continued building. It ultimately sold for $15 million, a loss of $7 million in under a year, not counting operating expenses during ownership. When the costs become impossible to ignore and the prospect of selling at a massive loss feels unbearable, most superyacht owners arrive at what seems like an obvious solution. Charter the yacht, let it generate income, let it pay for itself. This idea has saved exactly no one. The process of legally converting a private yacht into a commercially chartered vessel is not simple. International maritime law requires that the vessel be transferred to a commercial shipping registry. This triggers the application of international labor conventions governing commercial vessels, including strict minimum size requirements for crew accommodation areas. Private yachts are designed to maximize guest space at the expense of crew quarters. Commercial vessels are required to do the opposite. To obtain the necessary certification for charter operations, owners must commission a structural refit at a licensed shipyard. Walls are literally moved. guest cabin space is carved away to expand crew areas. The luxury interior that cost millions to create is surgically dismantled. This refit, which happens before the first paying guest ever steps aboard, typically costs between $150,000 and $200,000. Then the charter agencies take their share, up to 15% of the charter fee for client sourcing. The commercial insurance policy, now required at elevated coverage levels, doubles the annual insurance premium. A dedicated marketing campaign to attract the caliber of clients who charter vessels of this size costs additional tens of thousands. And charter guests treat the vessel in ways that private owners never would. Jet skis launched carelessly scrape the hull paintwork. The vacuum sewage systems get overwhelmed. Air conditioning units are run at maximum continuously. By the end of a single charter season, the engines have accumulated the equivalent of 2 years of private use in hours of operation. The mandatory shipyard overhaul that follows costs $200,000 and eliminates any profit the season generated. Maritime industry statistics confirm what experienced operators already know. More than 80% of charter yachts operate at a net loss even in successful seasons. When the costs are uncontrollable, the sale price is catastrophic, and the charter revenue covers nothing. There is one final stage in the superyacht life cycle that the industry almost never discusses publicly: abandonment. Tucked behind kilometers of concrete fencing, hidden from the tourist-facing marinas and the luxury hotel waterfronts, there are industrial port districts in almost every major coastal city where abandoned superyachts go to decay. These vessels were once symbols of extraordinary achievement. Their owners were people who had genuinely succeeded by almost any measure. The floodlights on their decks no longer come on at night. The panoramic windows are boarded over with plywood panels. White paint that once gleamed under Mediterranean sun peels away in large patches, exposing darkened steel beneath. Teak decking that cost more per square meter than most apartment floors warps and splits in the sun. Stainless steel fittings acquire thick layers of rust. Banks and financial institutions that repossess these vessels through debt proceedings find themselves caught in the same trap that destroyed the original owners. They expected to recover their capital through secondary market sales. Instead, they discover that a used 40-meter vessel with years of neglect, deferred maintenance, and a complicated legal history finds essentially no buyers. Months pass, then years. Maritime law prohibits leaving a vessel unattended at a berth without supervision. So the institution continues paying for dock space, minimum maintenance to keep the hull afloat, and security, costs that accelerate toward and eventually exceed whatever the vessel might realistically sell for. A 45-meter yacht known as Belate serves as the clearest illustration of this endpoint. Built to custom specification and representing the design standards of its era, the vessel became entangled in prolonged legal disputes following its owner's financial collapse. It sat immobilized in an industrial port in Cape Town. The legal proceedings continued for more than 20 years. 2 decades in aggressive saltwater without proper maintenance destroyed the internal systems completely. Without climate control, the rare timber paneling in every cabin rotted away entirely. Restoring the propulsion components alone would have cost more than the vessel's entire market value. The yacht was condemned. Specialists dismantled whatever equipment and interior elements remained in recoverable condition. The proceeds covered a fraction of the accumulated costs. The hull was scrapped. The people who buy superyachts are not naive. They are not financially unsophisticated. Many of them are extraordinarily successful individuals who have made complex, high-stakes decisions throughout their careers. But the superyacht industry is specifically designed to make the purchase feel like the end of a journey rather than the beginning of an obligation. The brokers show you the sunsets and the freedom and the status. They don't walk you through the 10% annual maintenance rule until after the wire transfer clears. The vessels themselves are genuinely extraordinary objects. The engineering, the craftsmanship, the experience of being aboard one in favorable conditions, none of that is an illusion. But the financial reality is equally real, and it moves in only one direction. For the rare individuals who can afford not just the purchase price, but the full and permanent cost of ownership without it affecting their financial position, a superyacht can be exactly what it appears to be. For everyone else, it is the most expensive lesson the ocean has to offer.